You don't have to have facial piercings and eyebrow tattoos.
Welcome to the Amplified Expert Podcast. Your business, your life, loud and clear. Make more money, get more clients, and spread your message faster so you can live the life that is true to who you really are. And now, your amplified host, David Jalen.
Hello and welcome to the Amplified Expert Podcast. This is David Jalen, and boy, oh boy, do I have a treat for you today. I have Chris Brogan on the program. Yes, the Chris Brogan is the owner and CEO of Owner Media Group. He is a New York Times bestselling author of 8 books and counting, and he's worked with all the big companies that you know out there, all the big names. But the cool thing is, for you listening, he has also worked with lots of individuals one-on-one. He is an expert in digital marketing and generating community. And I have to tell you, his podcast, The Owner's Mind, is outstanding. So, Chris, thank you for carving out a slice of time today, and welcome.
David, I'm always happy to talk to really smart people like you. And so thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. You know, you and I had a chance to meet at Michael Port's recent event, Heroic Public Speaking. And you were one of the expert panelists there. And I was blown away with what you had to share. But I tell you, I think what I was blown away with most is that you are really a cool guy. You are just a nice guy.
Well, that's very kind of you. I would go with more nice than cool, but yes, absolutely.
Well, yeah, I say that because, so many times we meet someone who has achieved a certain level of success, and it's like you meet them, you're like, wow, they're a putz. But that wasn't the case. Wasn't the case. You're an amazing guy. You shared your time with us, and I appreciate it. So, one of the main reasons why I wanted you on the program, why I asked you to be here, and again, I'm very gracious that you've carved out the time, is because I know that you've said before, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that, you didn't always fit in. You kind of had to figure out how to do things your way, and yet you managed to create a lot of success. I know part of your story is, you started blogging way back in the old days, back in the late 90s. And if I had the story correct, you didn't really start to monetize your work until, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years later. And I know you have said it's because, you're your worst enemy. So I guess my first question to you is, for those listening, how might they be able to shorten their learning curve? What did you extract from that experience where you can share sort of those war stories that are helpful to the people listening now?
David, that is quite literally $1 million question, maybe 3 million. I mean, between losses and missed opportunities and everything I've done wrong, I mean, the money really could be added up. I would say that I think the very first and foremost thing to talk about is just that one of the things that you said early on in your very kind introduction to me was that I am very much the kind of person that when you meet him, you go, oh, thank God he wasn't such a jerkhead. And I mean, I know that's a weird thing to lead with, but that turned out to be really first and foremost in my entire decision on how I was going to do business. And, I don't think anyone ever sits down and goes, I think I'll be a jerk. But I think what happens is we get really caught up in, let's say we lose our job. Let's say that somebody listening to you on the show goes tomorrow, listening to this going, ah, ha, ha, and then tomorrow shows up at work and the boss says, look, I got to tell you, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything. The economy sucks. You got to pack up your stuff. Good talking to you. And then, here's your check. Goodbye. And you've got basically a week and a half worth of money there. What you do next is usually panic mode. Oh God, I got to find a job. I got to find something to do. When we are desperate, we do stupid things. And when we are desperate, we look at the entire world like it's seeds instead of fruit. And the analogy is really simple. So if you've got a bunch of seeds in your hands, you can plant them in the ground and grow fruit, or you can eat them right now. Now, everyone goes, oh, well, given that analogy, we of course want to plant the seeds. But if you're going to die, you have to eat some of the seeds, right? Like you've got to put something in your belly now so that you can live for later. But you really are trying to aim for something like 30% eating the seeds, 70% planting. And where people get it all wrong is they go crazy trying desperately to sell because they need the money, not because they can try to be of service or deliver any kind of value. And I think that what I did wrong in the early days, well, first off, what I did wrong was not even that sin. It was the opposite sin of saying, oh, I think sales is evil. I think selling is bad. I will never try to sell something to this community that I serve. Meanwhile, the community was sitting there going, teach us more. I would love to do more with you. I would love to, figure out how you got to where you got. Why aren't you sharing it? You must be some kind of jerk. Why aren't you sharing this important information? So I was depriving people of what I had already spent time and effort learning how to do so that they could, save time, which is, how you sell things is to deliver a value. So to me, that's sort of a really long way of answering your question, but to say, hey, listen, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to earn the right to serve a community where you feel like you can help and participate.
Well, first of all, I love the analogy. That was fantastic. I mean, you have to decide based upon where you are in life how many seeds you're going to eat, right? And make sure you have some for planting, though.
That's right. And it's never, there's no mix that's ever particularly wrong. It's just a matter of sometimes life is tough and you've got to eat them. And the rest of the time, the more you can grow fruit, then of course you're going to have lots more to eat for later.
Yeah, you brought up something really important there, and that is, you mentioned the struggle that I think a lot of people have with selling, right? I mean, it's sort of this idea, because we've all seen people go the other way, right? Where they're just shoving something down our throat. I get so tired of hearing about it. We get off their list or whatever it may be. But I think sometimes we err too much the other way, and we don't make enough legitimate sales offers.
Exactly.
Do you agree with that?
Exactly. And it's so easy once you look at it differently. Like once you look at how you spend your time and your money, like when you're trying a new hobby or something that you really are interested in or something, what happens is you start looking for anything you can about it. Let's pretend you've decided you're going to take up obstacle course racing, which is a pretty big, fitness movement going on right now. Spartan race, Tough Mudder, those kinds of things. Well, you go, what do I need? So you start reading some blogs, and then you go, I wonder if I can find a book about this. So you go to Amazon. And if someone said, I've got a series of training videos that are going to really cut through all of the mistakes I made in the first 2 years, you're going to want to buy those because you don't want to make mistakes. I mean, if you're going to go out for your first race, you might as well learn more about it. But no one pulled your arm and said, you come get this thing. You said, hey, I would love this. And that's the experience that we're really looking for. I mean, it's that horrible, really overused cliche. No one likes to be sold to, but everyone likes to buy. And it's true. That's true of us. And so then when we think about that, somehow there's this weird mental disconnect because, our bank account is empty. And so we go, oh crap, let's go sell. But that's not how people buy. And so we really just have to find that way right down the middle that's going to get us what we need. Yeah,
I mean, the word that comes to me is relevance, right? I mean, we're making relevant offers that the people want. The people we're sharing our information with want. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. You wrote a book. You wrote lots of books, but your last book that I guess came out about a year ago, The Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth. I thought, man, anybody who puts the word freaks in the title of a book is all right for me. I mean, it was like you wrote it for me. And, I mean, the premise of the book, for those listening, if you haven't read it yet, is how can I do business my way and be successful? When the way I think and the goals I have aren't in line with conventional thinking. So Chris, who is a freak? Freak is anyone who has sort of a tattoo level obsession with doing business the way that they intend to do it with the people that they want to serve and in a way that matches both their needs and interests. So it's not, you don't have to have facial piercings and eyebrow tattoos and things like that. Some of the people who first identified themselves to me as freaks once the book came out were like Rod Burkett and Mel Abraham, who are two certified public accountants. Mitch Jackson, California's leading trial attorney, says it all the time. He goes, I'm totally a freak, because he does things in a very different way than the other trial attorneys. And, the book also could have been titled, Please Don't Hire Chris for a Corporate Speaking Gig. But it was definitely, and I had wrote it with the intention that, corporations could learn from it as well, but that's not who bought it. People who, did not see themselves represented in all the other books on entrepreneurship said, wait a minute, there's a lot I could pick up from this. And I'm grateful for that. So thanks for saying that. No, absolutely. I mean, it really touched me because, again, this podcast, we share a lot of strategies, tactics, marketing ideas, but, it's very important to me to address what I think is the biggest obstacle for most people, for most personality-driven businesses out there, most coaches, consultants, authors, speakers, and that is, figuring out how to really become fully, and I hate to overuse this term, is so overused, but to become fully self-expressed in business. Because to me, in my experience, it's happened in my own life, and I've noticed it, amongst many of my clients, is that people get scared. How much can I share? Am I turning people off? And then what people do is they seem to revert back into kind of doing what everybody else in their industry is doing. And they end up creating a vanilla brand, a brand that doesn't stick, a brand that doesn't stand out. Am I on the right track there? Is fear one of the biggest reasons that people are held back?
100%. And so often I say to people that if I just stopped by telling you one sentence, that the biggest problems that you have in your business are 100% driven by fear and love. And I just walked out of the room. Mm-hmm. First off, you'd be like, oh, you hippie. Second off, you wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about. And third, you'd be like, at the best, you might say, I totally agree. I don't know what to do about it. But when I find people who have branding challenges, it's usually they're afraid. When I find people that are thinking, sort of scarcity mindset, it's just that, they've had problems with love of any kind, not even relationship love, but like boss love. If you've got one boss that ever stole your best idea and you thought, that jerky boss, I used to teach people for the last 15 or so years, give your ideas handles and let everyone steal your ideas. Because the idea in itself isn't always the most valuable thing. It's, what you're going to do with it. And if you got it executed in a way that benefited you, even though someone else kind of ran with it, a lot of times that's just as good. So it's fear and love driven. I would say that, I just said this to a guy 11 minutes before you and I started talking. This guy said, here's my brand, here's my company, here's my whatever. And I said, has anyone else just raised the question that you named your entire business after a really famous author's really famous book? You're in the shadow of some other guy's brand right out of the gate. And I just thought maybe no one's ever told him that before.
Wow. What an enlightening moment. And you really touched on something important there, and it's love, because I often go to the fear part of it, which I think is strong. But wow, love is a big part of this, isn't it? Being able to love and accept love.
Yeah, well, there's that, now we're getting Buddhist and stuff like that, but there's that thing where they say that, there's two dogs fighting and the grandfather comes and sees it and the grandson says, what's this about? And one dog is fear and one dog is courage. And the boy says, well, which dog's going to win the fight? And the grandfather says, the one you feed. And that concept, are you going to feed the fear dog or feed the courage dog, drives our business, David. It's not, again, I know somebody listening to this is going, oh my God, I hope he shuts up. But it's totally true. Like that, that one detail, you give away marketing campaigns, but you're not unlike me in which that you really kind of have to hide the broccoli inside the cake. You can say to these people, here's a marketing campaign, but what you're kind of doing is teaching them how not to be so afraid and how to have the courage to move forward.
Take the action. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Hey, you mentioned something else in the book that I think is very powerful, and that is to worship the obstacles and challenges. I think this is a good place to go to next because, we're talking about fear. I think, a lot of us are trying to figure out a way to avoid challenges, to avoid obstacles. So explain a little bit more to us. What is worshiping the obstacles and the challenges? What is that about?
Look, I tell people this every day. I take 100 shots and fail at 99 at them, and I win at 1. I'm still ahead of you if you're sitting around worried that you're not going to do it right. And those are true numbers. That's the thing that makes people, kind of think about it for a minute, is that I really literally try and fail all the time. Multiple percentages of the things I do fail horribly. And that's not how entrepreneurs talk about things unless they're, going to say the truth. And I'm a big fan of that. And I think that, as you fail, you learn. As you learn, you grow. And the best thing you could do is try and bust something and then go, oh, now I got to figure out how to make this work. I just did it literally with my car. I smashed the front of my car into a snowbank a little harder than I should. And the side popped out. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go to a body shop. I wonder if I could just push this back in. And so I had to look at it. I had to figure out how it worked. I had to put it all together. And I broke a piece of it. I was like, I just learned what not to do. And then I pushed it a different way, and then it snapped back in good enough for me. And yeah, there's a little piece of plastic missing on the side of my car, but life's going to go on. And that to me, that separates out people who are going to be a lot more successful because someone else is still sitting there looking at the car that just mushed into the snowbank. They haven't even left the scene of the accident yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, isn't that it? I mean, and again, this has been, I've experienced this as well, so I'm not pointing fingers at anybody else out there. We're all in the same boat. But, I think so often we try to make everything perfect, right? Whether we're writing a book, whether we're creating a course, no matter what project it is that we want to create, we end up finding every reason, it's procrastination, which leads back to fear. And I think so. The bottom line, what you're saying is just do it, right? Because a lot of times it's not going to work. And so what? You just keep moving.
I only want two people to be perfect: commercial airline pilots and surgeons. Everyone else has a chance to fail. It's okay.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Hey, I know you've been gracious with your time, but I've got to dig into content creation because you're a master at this. And one thing you said recently that hit a nerve with me because it affected me personally is you said you're crazy if you don't have a newsletter. And I've got to tell you, content marketing, where we're all at with this. There's a million things to do. Everybody's trying to figure out how to produce something that's of value. We're all pressed for time. So what did you mean by that? What is it about a newsletter that you think is so important?
Oh boy, if there is only one regret I have in my entire business career, it's that I didn't start my newsletter sooner. I had a blog. I was like, newsletter? I'm modern, dudes. I have a blog. No one ever looks on a blog to see if anybody's mad at them. No one ever goes to Twitter or Facebook to see if their significant other or their boss is yelling at them. As many times as people try to say email is dead, that's baloney. We look at our email. I mean, text, I guess, is probably a little more intimate, but, text marketing is misery. So I think that email is really still the best social network to connect with people. And I think that what drives me insane about it is that so many people's version of a newsletter is either just sending their blog in the inbox, which I guess you could do if you want, but that's like saying, hey, come on over to my house because I'd really love for you to have leftovers. Or people send like a junk drawer in the mail. They're like, oh, I just clipped these 11 things that I thought were kind of neat articles that I read on my feed, and I'm just going to send them to you. And maybe miraculously, I'll get business from this, which is, again, it's like, I just mailed you my junk drawer. Where's my money? But if you do a third option, which is if you treat your newsletter like the velvet rope, if you treat the newsletter like, I cannot believe you've graced me with access to your inbox, so I want to tell you the most important things in my entire business and life inside this little window, people will respond. 70+% of my revenue comes from my inbox. And that's because I treat it like gold and I treat people like gold, and I make sure that they know that I'm always going to nurture and respect and reply if people hit reply to my newsletter. So that's where the money is.
So it's not regurgitated blog posts then. So
not even a bit.
Is then it's got to be unique content just for the newsletter.
100%. And the way I say it to people all the time is blogs are for Google, the newsletter's for the most important people in your life. The newsletter is, the blog is supposed to attract people by finding it via some Google search, but the real goal there is to convert somebody to want to be on the newsletter. If you give me access to the inbox, I'm going to treat you much better than I'll treat you just, kicking the tires. To me, the blog is like going to the art gallery and you're the one eating the free Ritz crackers. Which is fine. You can eat all my free Ritz crackers, but I'm there to sell paintings. So if you come in, hey, I really like this and I want to get involved more, that's the newsletter. That's, getting past the Ritz table to say, tell me what you were thinking when you made this painting. And that's who I want to serve.
Hey, so just, and I know we're I'm putting this into a bite-sized piece, but for, again, most of the people listening are coaches, they're consultants, they're service professionals. So obviously you believe it's important for them to start a newsletter if they don't already have one going. What is the other main media distribution channel you would suggest? Is it podcasts? Is it YouTube?
The way I tell a lot of folks to do it, and I'm sure your community will appreciate this a great deal, is you have to have a blog, you have to have a newsletter, and then you can pick whichever one you want for the third as to what makes you happy. So if you have a very visual kind of business, like if you're a kind of coach that teaches people how to climb mountains, then get on Pinterest and shoot lots of photos of mountains for people. If you like taking photos. If you hate shooting video, if you're scared to death of shooting video, then don't get on YouTube. If you don't like the sound of your voice, well, get over it. No one likes the sound of their voice. But Podcasting is easy once you kind of get a jump start and figure out how to do it. None of the mediums are especially good or bad. I would say that one difference that blogs have over every other medium is that Google can read text, but it can't listen to your voice. And when people don't have time, they can read a 300-word blog post really fast. But what they cannot do is they can't, listen lazily through 38 minutes of audio or something like that. So I think that there's some benefits to a blog.
Cool. Hey, we're up against it, but I wanted to ask you one thing about the structure of your day. I mean, you get a lot done. You're a busy guy. What does your morning look like? I know we only have a couple of seconds, but what is your morning routine if you have one?
Oh, it's all good. My colleague, Rob Hatch, used me as the guinea pig for his first ever course, which was called Work Like You're on Vacation. And the premise was, do you ever notice when you go on vacation with your family, but you're kind of working, that you can like really tuck a lot of work in before everyone gets ready to go down to the pool or whatever you're doing?
Yep.
And he said, how come I can't do that like when I'm not on vacation? And then the answer is, of course you can. You just have to be disciplined. So Rob and I have this thing where we can work and kind of get everything officially done by about 11 and then have time in the rest of the day to do whatever else we want to do. I can tell you that the way my day almost always works is, first off, I never start with email. Email is the perfect delivery system of other people's challenges and concerns. So if you're opening your inbox first thing in the morning, you are not starting from a position of your strength, your intentions, and what you think you're going to do in the day. Yes, you probably need to check email. No, you don't have to check it first thing. I promise the distance between you and peeing and meditating for 5 whole minutes, the world will not explode. And so that's what I do first. I pee and then I meditate. And then I read sort of my intentions and make sure that I've framed my head around what I intend to get done. And then I check and see if email is going to ruin my day. What I do a lot is I, for instance, when I said I'd love to be a guest on your show, I said, can we just keep it to about 20 minutes? You said, sure. That's one way I get my time. I do that same thing with meetings. I do that with everything. And if I'm going to give real one-on-one time, I try to make that the premium versus the not, which is another great reason for a newsletter, because the kind of stuff that you would maybe give away and make a few dollars for, if you give it away for free in your newsletter, then you're going to really earn the opportunity to spend that premium time the way you want to. And so I structure a lot of my day for how to use asynchronous time to earn me back as much synchronous time as I want.
Yeah, nice, man. I've really worked on my morning routine. It's helped a lot. So, yeah, I appreciate that. And look, I told you I'd respect your time, and we're going to do it. So we're going to wrap it up right now. But one thing, Chris, that I know you have a new book coming out. Any date set for that yet?
There is no date set for it for a reasonably funny reason, is that the publisher who gets the right of first refusal is out sick right now. But I'm looking towards fall of 2015. It's called Belong, and it is a framework for embracing community, driving the economy, and building the future. And it's basically this really simple concept that once you find where you belong, then you will have a much better chance of building business value there, because you'll understand the people that you're serving.
Well, I am looking forward to that. In the meantime, everyone listening, go grab one of Chris's books, or get all of them. I mean, again, The Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth, I think, is awesome. I think you guys will love that. And also go check out his podcast, The Owner's Mind. It is excellent. Chris, anything else that they should know about reaching out to you, getting in touch with you? What should they do?
If you swing by chrisbrogan.com and you decide you want to try out my newsletter, I promise I don't bite. But the other cool thing about it is just hit reply anytime you want, and I'm very, very, very happy to talk to you.
Chris Brogan, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this. It's been an enlightening 20 some odd minutes. We won't say how many extra, but there they are. So thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And until next time, everybody listening, live amplified.
Hey guys, David Jalen here. At the time of this recording, Chris Brogan has just released a brand new course called the Online Course Maker. So as an expert, if you have wanted to learn how to create your own online course, this is a fantastic time to do it. Learn from somebody who has had tremendous success and is super cool on top of it. There are 6 modules. You're going to learn how to develop an idea into a course. You're going to learn how to build content of value easily and in many formats. You're going to learn pricing strategies for selling your online course. You're going to learn the technology choices and advice for all aspects of your course. You're going to learn marketing, the sales strategies. and walkthroughs, including the very best sales letter I have ever sent, and that's Chris speaking, not me. And then lastly, you'll learn the production and distribution help that you need and the workflows to put all this together, and it's ridiculously cheap. So if you want to know more about this, simply go to davidjalen.com/Brogan. davidjalen.com/Brogan. The link will also be in the show notes. So anyway, go check it out. And again, thanks for tuning in to the Amplified Expert Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Amplified Expert Podcast. Find the archives for this show at davidjalen.com/podcast or on iTunes. Contact David at davidjalen.com and remember to live amplified. Amplified.